High tech, do you guys hear me? Okay. And I'm supposed to be up here, which also feels really weird. So thank you, Anne-Marie. I have enjoyed working with Anne-Marie and so many of the people from Bridge of Life, so I'm really excited to be here. I want to make sure that you guys know everything that we're doing here, because one thing I've talked with Anne-Marie, Amy, I mean all the people that I've met from Bridge of Life, is that life is tough, but it is much tougher when you're dealing with it by yourself. So don't. And Florida Center has so many amazing, amazing programs. Wait, I'm feeling like I'm hearing my breathing. It's a little bit better. It has so many amazing services available that please just get connected to us. We have our fetal alcohol spectrum disorder clinic, which is amazing. Like, I'm so proud to be working there. There's play therapy. There's a thing called Circle of Security, which we'll kind of touch on a little bit today. We have a lot of child-parent psychotherapy dealing with trauma and helping parents talk to their kids about trauma and helping them process their trauma. I mean, the list is endless. So please they know how to get in touch with me. Feel free to get in touch with me so I can help direct you to where you need to go. So just don't. And we also have a wonderful, wonderful support group weekly. I love it. It's like anyone who calls, I'm like, you need to come to the support group. It's amazing. It's so wonderful. So it's on Wednesdays from 9 to 10:30, and it's really working with kids that are substance exposed, FASD or substance exposed. It's just a really great group. So, if that's something that you're interested in, let me know. So here we are. So once again, yes, my name is Tamra. You'll probably not know how to say my name. It looks like Cajo, or it looks like Cujo. It's not. It's Cajo. So if you ever need to know who I am, you probably had no idea how to say it all these times. And what I want to do is, and just to tell you a little bit about me, I'm a mental health therapist. I've been in the field for many years, but for the past year, I've really been focusing on fetal alcohol spectrum disorders and really looking at children that I've always worked with children with trauma, but really now going through the trauma and substance abuse lens, which creates just a whole other level to this. So the training I'm giving today is kind of looking at like overall children, but I will always be talking in the lens for you guys for that. And bear in mind, I've worked a lot more with early childhood. I have worked with older children as well. So I also will just try to make this information just more useful for all ages. Because how many people are working with children under 5? Or how many children? Okay, and then how many are 5 and over? Okay, so we got a little mix. Okay, so that's what we're doing today. And once again, bear with me. This is all new, so I'm a little weird on this. So what we're talking about today is understanding and building resiliency. So I'll explain a little bit more of what that means. Slide. So what we're going to learn today is really looking at those protective factors that children need to learn, and really learning and teaching and being intentional. Anne-Marie talked a lot about intentionality, and a lot of this is about intentionality. Factors that impact children learning these protective factors, and and really some concrete strategies that you can go home and practice and try to do in your home. Okay, slide. So the big training rules. First of all, and I don't have one that I didn't put in there, be nice to yourself. So if you're like, wow, why didn't I ever think of that? Who cares? You just didn't think about it now, and now you didn't know it before, and now you know it. There's no judgment in it, so just no judgment. No judgment to others, anything like that. Being open to being reflective, the more that you can think about, okay, why didn't I do this? Or what's going on with here? What's going on with me? The more reflective you can be of yourself, the more you're going to be able to help your children. Be open-minded. The big thing with helping children is having as many tricks as you can up your sleeve. And so creativity and being open-minded is essential. Because if this thing doesn't work, I gotta make it work into something else. So being open-minded and thinking of it in so many different ways. And being adaptable. And being adaptable means You always really want to be making those. So going back to your open-minded, having so many different tricks up your sleeve, but you also want to make sure that you're adapting to the situation, which isn't always easy, which is why you need this team of people to help you. So we'll go really briefly, because I know there's probably a lot, but what are some stressful situations that your children have been experienced in their lifetime? And just really briefly, we can talk about it. Can anyone share? I'm a person who likes people talking. Going into a classroom? Thank you. Church? Mm-hmm. Being bullied, being talked down on. You guys are a quiet group. Come on now. Maybe after a while. So a child even needing to deal with another child that's having really big behaviors. And I'm imagining, that's just what's going on right now. I'm imagining that your children have experienced maybe physical abuse, sexual abuse, multiple moves, neglect. I'm imagining, has that ever happened with any of your kids? So they've had to deal with a lot of trauma, and it's really important to know that, even if they've been exposed in utero, because that's the base, and this is where they've learned things. Okay, slide. And so a lot of your kids, I'm imagining, have a lot of risk factors. We look at the individual, so there's a lot of kids who have maybe been exposed to both alcohol or drugs in utero, which can impact brain development and all that things. There could be a lot of medical problems. There could be a lot of different things that are happening that can cause that be an individual risk factors. The relationships, like I said, they've been exposed maybe to domestic violence, changes in placements, lots of different things that are going on. Trust me, this is not going to be a Debbie Downer the whole time. You're like, I know this is the worst thing ever. But it's important just to kind of remember that. The community, maybe up to this point they didn't have a community. Now this is a protective factor that you guys are here together, but maybe they didn't have that before. Or they're not in a school because they're not fitting in with the community. So that could be another problem that kicks in for a lot of these kids. And then society, where it's like going into like, doctors don't understand, no one understands, the society understands, and they think that these kids are just having behaviors just because of bad parenting or whatever it is. So these kids have a lot of risk factors. Slide. And then to go make matters worse is like parents are more stressed, and so here I know you guys, this is what's calling a problem. Parents are more stressed because of this situation. There's electronic media. There's all these different things that are going on that are in and out of our control. There's unhealthy foods, all these things where it's like it's just a lot of work. And there's little time to teach children to deal with all this stress. So it's like we're just living in an incredibly, incredibly stressful time, both our children and us. So we just have to kind of give ourselves a hug for all the stuff that we're kind of coming into, and so that's just really important to know. Slide. But what is the effect of the stress? So how many of you guys know like the ACEs study and things like that? Okay, so some of you, not everyone. Okay, so it's a good one to look up. It's the ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experience Study. And maybe another time will come that we'll have everyone fill out the ACEs study, because what it is you look at, for yourself or for your children, how many adverse things that happened to you in your childhood. And then with that, what will happen is you get a score. And so you might get a score of 1, 2, 4, 5, like many of the kids that come through clinic might have like a 10, which is really high. But the study showed that the more adverse childhood experiences that occurred, the more likely that, you might get, physical ailments, or you might be dealing with obesity early, getting pregnant early, heart disease and all that stuff. And part of the reason for that is, if you think about it, if you're in a state of constant stress, So let's just say I'm stressed, and this is like, there's healthy stress and unhealthy stress. So let's just say I'm really stressed. My body's going to be really tight. I'm going to be breathing really superficially. I'm going to be maybe I'm slouched because I'm looking at things, and that's what we do when we're stressed. We just do it, and sometimes we don't aware of it. What happens with our kids, or even for us, if we're in constant stress, that becomes our norm. So if I'm like this and breathing superficially, do you think you're going to be getting enough oxygen through to all your different organs? You're probably not. Or if your muscles are going to be tight, it's not healthy for your body. And so that's what's happening with you guys, and that's what's happening a lot with our kiddos, especially because when they're young, going back to 0 to 5, about 95% of the brain is being developed. So their brain is functioning under stress. So the idea of if we talk to a child and say, oh, calm down, they don't have the muscle memory to know even what it feels like to be calm. So it's not so simple to do. It's really like talking we're speaking in English, and it's like, oh, why don't we speak Japanese? They have no idea. And especially if, just thinking of you all, right now you might be in constant stress dealing with your children. I don't know your trauma history, but your body also might be doing that same thing where you're just constantly stressed. And there's a lot of, if you look up ACEs, ACES, look it up. There's a lot of information. A great movie to see, Resilience, really helps with kind of explaining the whole ACEs study. It's really a great study to look at. Okay. So I want to get back into resiliency, because the reality is, I'm imagining some of you guys have dealt with stress, right? And you've had your own trauma, I'm imagining, because not many people I know have had a perfect childhood. But you're here, you're a parent, you're functioning in society, and why? And this is what we want for our kids. And it's all to do with resiliency. And so that ability to bounce back, to become stronger, healthier, successful again after something bad happens. So the reality is why one person is successful and one person is not under really bad conditions. It has everything to do with resiliency. And some have natural resiliency. There's some people, it's really easy to do this, to be able to bounce back. And there's others, it's a lot more work. Slide. So how do we build resiliency? And that's for us. And really is, I'm going to be talking like a parallel process of you guys and the children at the same time. Because in order to create resilient children, we need to have resilient parents. So the ways to build or create protective factors is that we need to learn skills there are skills that children learn to help deal and cope in a healthier way with the challenges in life. So it's certain skills that we actually are teaching. Now, once again, there's some people it's just easy and it comes natural, and there's others it's really like another life lesson that we need to teach, or it's another life lesson we need to teach ourselves. Slide. So I'm going to go to the next one because I want to make sure with time. Slide. So there's there's different protective factors. There's an early childhood, and then you'll get into when you get older. I'm going to focus a little bit more on early childhood because, first of all, we can't jump to the other protective factors if we don't have this base first. So if we don't have this base, I'm not going to go on to the next. So I'm going to go with the concrete, and then we'll get on to the next. So the three main protective factors are attachment and relationships, which means a mutual, strong, and long-lasting relationship between a child and a significant adult. But really, why is attachment and relationships a protective factor? So let's just say life gets tough, and which it does for us all, like that is. If I'm able to reach out to somebody and form a relationship with somebody, I'm a step 20, 50 steps ahead than a person who's like, I'm okay, and just hangs out by themselves. It's a huge protective factor to be able to reach and form relationships. Initiative. So the child's ability to use independent thoughts to meet his or her needs. So what does that mean? And I'm going to get into more detail with each one of those. So why is this a protective factor? So once again, there's a child who dealing with domestic violence, dealing with the stress of a special needs kid, dealing with whatever it is. But initiative may mean, I want to play with that friend, and I'm going to go ask that friend to go and come over. Or I'm going to make a call and try to reach out to that friend. Or I'm going to try to ride a bike, even though I'm feeling like I can't do it. Or I'm going to try out for a club or a sport. That is huge. Because without that, so going back to life being tough, if I'm willing to do this, it creates a space of more community and being together, because they're all interrelated. But also, like, this ability initiative is being able, a huge one, is being able to try something, and if that doesn't succeed, I'm going to try something else. I don't know how many people, I'm just talking about just us as adults, but just going in a therapeutic thing where, like, a parent will be like, I'm having really a hard time with all my, with my child, and they try something and it doesn't work, and then they're like, okay, forget this, I'm not going to do anything else. Now, what happens? This person's now left alone. But it's really about trying, and that's not working, how do we change it, coming back. All that is a protective factor to stay in the game. Because without staying in the game, there's no game to play. Does that make sense? So that's another huge protective factor that we'll be teaching kids. And then obviously self-regulation and self-control, which is the child's ability to gain control of bodily functions, manage powerful emotions, maintain focus and attention, and their ability to express their feelings in a wide variety, in a range of feelings, and express them using the words and an action that society deems appropriate. Why is that such a big deal? Just going back to me as a therapist, someone comes in, is like, how's life? Fine. Versus, or I don't know, everything's okay. Versus, I'm feeling kind of confused, a little angry, and really overwhelmed because I want to help this child, but I don't know how to do it. Like, then I know what it is. So the person who's able to really express themselves, I'm like, other people will be able to help them in the way that they need to be helped. And so it can be also like a situation where, like, some people, like, they have like 3 feelings that they could say: happy, sad, and angry. And the problem with angry, when I'm angry at you, the natural reaction of human nature is you're angry right back at me, and then nothing gets done. But if I'm like, you know what, my feelings are hurt, you're going to come back to me in such a different way. So really helping get an emotional vocabulary is so important and a huge protective factor, because they can eventually get what they want. Okay, slide. And I'm briefly going to go over this, and I'm assuming, Jody, you can send out these PowerPoints if you want. But just like as you get into that, and it might be more challenging. So going back to this is higher level. So some of our kids, especially the kids exposed to alcohol or maybe even drugs, they may not get to this point, but the other part they can, like of self-awareness, or we can help them get to self-awareness, because I go back to, even with you guys, the more self-reflective you are of being able to understand your role in things and in life, the more that you're going to be able to help others and have control over the situation. So going back to, once again, therapy, and the people who are successful in therapy versus people who are not successful in therapy are people who come in and go, oh my gosh, I just want my husband to change. Versus someone's like, you know what, I'm frustrated with my husband, but I'm realizing that I'm having little patience, and there's things going on with me. The person who's self-aware enough to know that the only thing you have control over is yourself is the person who's going to be able to go forward, because that's all you have control over. So that's something that That takes time to develop. It doesn't take it like that. But that's a protective factor because that's a person who's going to be able to move forward. You know, having social awareness, optimist thinking. There's a whole bunch that I'm not going to get into because I want to make sure we get into the other things, but you can look at it later as a higher developing thing. Slide. So Anne-Marie said something that I love because that is what we need to do, is being intentional. And so this is like something like always just thinking of going back to being reflective. The difference between react and respond, which I know it says it here, so I guess I'll just explain it. Usually I would be asking a question. So react and respond is, I'm angry and I'm just going to react. I'm not going to be thinking about it. But so and really how it goes is you feel, you think, you act. Those are the three things that happen before you kind of do something. But when you're reacting, you might feel, and then you go right into acting. You might not even feel, you're just going right into acting. Versus being responsive is you feel, you think, you act. And having that thinking element will help you become much more intentional. Once again, this is maybe easier said than done, but that's where you don't want to be left alone in this, and so you can always come back and reflect later. Any questions? Because you guys are the quietest group ever. I'm going to be making you guys do things, so sorry. Next slide. I'm going to wait on this. Next. Okay, so we're going to get into attachment again. So what is attachment? And we're going to get into like how do we teach it and some activities with that. So the reality is attachment is about teaching children to relate to others in a respectful manner and the ability to trust and form bonds with safe others. So does the child feel safe, secure, and protected? Is the child overly needy or indiscriminate of approaching new people? Does the child show resistance to appropriate displays of affection? Is the child likable? All of these things can create issues with attachment or making it really easy to attach. And so like a child who's really likable and really calm and maybe goes to people indiscriminately, not saying, they might get a lot of their emotional needs met a lot easier than someone who might have sensory issues and is pushing away. They might not get that attachment stuff. It just may not come as easy. And then to make matters worse is that a lot of your kids have come from home, like they've had trauma from before, so they've learned unhealthy attachment. So they're coming in they're kind of being like, I need you, but I don't need, I need you, but I don't need you. So I'm going to run away from you even though I really need you. So it can get super confusing of what to do and how do you create that foundation of attachment. So they talked previously about the attachment and how it starts first with the caregiver, and it does. And so I'm just going to show you a little brief video about circle of security. And I'm going to cough. And what it is just really explaining about attachment and children's emotional needs. Sorry. And children's emotional needs, because what can happen is not only do your kids may be having this mismatch of attachment, but sometimes we're missing attachment opportunities without realizing it. So the video is just going to explain a little bit more, thank you, about attachment and their emotional needs. Circle of security.
Parents, we all wonder if we're getting it right. We want to know we're meeting our children's needs, helping them grow, and giving them all that we can. We try to combine our own experience of being parented with the advice of others and our own instincts and beliefs about what is best. And still, we so often worry that we're not succeeding. In a world that is always offering the next best parenting solution, the circle of security is based on decades of attachment research. Unlike many behavioral perspectives, it offers relationship tools to provide a new way of understanding your children's needs, creating lasting security for them and more satisfaction for you. The circle graphic has been created to help you know what to look for so you can read your children's behavior to guide you in meeting their needs. It's really not complicated. People of all ages have attachment needs. These needs can be divided in 3 ways. Let's look at this child. First, he needs to know the freedom and confidence to go out and explore his world. Second, he needs to feel assured that whenever he's ready, he can come back for comfort and protection. Third, he needs his caregiver to be in charge in a kind way. 3 basic needs that can be thought of as going out on the circle, coming in on the circle, and hands on the circle. Let's have a look in more detail. Feeling safe and supported, our children want to discover their world. When going out, they need to know that their exploration is encouraged, that we're right there watching over them, delighting in them, offering help when needed, and ready to enjoy their new adventures with them. And when they're coming in, they need us to refill their emotional cup. This means organizing their emotions and letting them know we are delighted to welcome them back, protect, comfort, and understand them. The key for us as parents is to remain strong and kind while knowing when to encourage their going out into the world and how to be available to welcome them back to us. It's crucial that we learn to identify our children's needs like this, because misreading them, or worse, missing them altogether, can cause pain and frustration. We all know how uncomfortable it can be to be held too close when we want to be out exploring, or kept at a distance when we need emotional support, or simply to be without someone who is bigger, stronger, wiser and kind, who we can trust to understand what we need when we're feeling lost, confused, or out of control. When a child misbehaves, the cause is often rooted in how safe and secure they're feeling. So it's not surprising that they behave well when a parent learns to tune into their child's needs on the circle in this way. And because our needs on the circle never disappear, learning to read cues can help you better understand and meet the needs of people of all ages, including your own. So that's all there is to it. Just know that at any given moment, your child is somewhere on the circle asking you to meet a need. Support my going out. Welcome my coming in. Be the hands that keep me safe by staying in charge and committed to helping me feel connected. And please remember this, there's no such thing as perfect parenting. At Circle of Security, we've come to realize that good enough is, well, good enough. All of us are going to miss needs on the circle time and again. Welcome to the club. But if we meet our children's needs enough of the time, the results will be happier, healthier, more secure children, and parents too.
So any thoughts? I see a shaking of a head. You quiet group. Okay, then I'm going to keep on talking. So just to kind of remember, so this is not just with parents and children, it's with everything. So there's 3 important parts to the circle. There's the hands of I'm here, because often what has happened with a lot of our kids, those hands weren't there. The parent was peace out, was drinking, was using drugs, was obsessed with relationships. So previous to probably coming in your home, maybe no one was holding that circle. So now they're in a place where someone's holding the circle. And then this is just general needs. They go out to explore, and then they come back, and they come back to that caregiver. It could be also with your significant other. You go to work, and then you come home and you connect. And so it's that circle that's constantly happening that's really important to do. And coming back to that circle can be anything. So I'll just give a really brief story of misreads of coming back into the circle. So I was doing a group and I was talking to a parent, and she had 4 boys. And there was one day she was doing dishes or whatever, and they were in their rooms, but there was one boy who just kept on looking, opening the door and just looking at the mom. And then she's like, "What are you doing?" So what happened in that situation, that boy was independent, playing his thing. He wanted to reconnect just by looking at his mom. Without realizing it, the mom ended up rejecting that child in that moment. So sometimes there's these connection opportunities where, like, maybe a child's playing with their friends and then they come back to their parent, and then the parent's like, "Go play with your friends, go play with your friends," rather than, "Oh, it's nice to see you." Just acknowledge and that you have that connection, and they might go back and go and explore again. So it's really important just to kind of be looking at that circle, because sometimes you just might be missing those opportunities. Any questions with that? And it could be just going back to, like, exploring the circle. There might be times where children, especially we have a lot of kids with special needs, where it's really scary to figure out how much we want them to explore and be on their own. So it's like, for every child, that's going to be something that you're going to have to figure out. Because the goal is that even with special needs, we don't want that child just to be always with that parent, because if they're always with that parent, they have no opportunities to explore. But yet at the same time, the parent is holding the circle, so we're going to have to figure out how far that child can have that space of independence of exploring, because that's just a general need. Our general need of never exploring is just, that won't work. Does that make sense? Do shaking of heads, then I know this makes sense. And then there's other needs that can kind of get kicked in. And one of the stories I always love to share is, like, so going back to exploring, you can get into really specific needs. And so one of them is to explore is helping. So helping could be an opportunity for a child to be on their own. So, like, going back to forming relationships with another peer, the child might need help to explore by the parent to be able to explore. That might happen. Sometimes the child may not need help, but they just have a need to just watch over. So maybe the kid doesn't need anything, but they just need to be walking by their side and be there and witnessing it. And so sometimes that can cause some problems, because sometimes we think a child may need help when the reality is they just want us present. So really understanding those emotional needs is really important to be able to meet the needs of the children. And that's at the foundation, especially with your kiddos, because they're coming in with learning this in a completely different language and with completely different rules. And so now what needs to happen is we need them to have more of the circle where they're meeting the needs so that they're learning kind of how to form healthy relationships, because it's not coming naturally. Slide. So we're going to do an activity. I think there's paper, and I hope you guys do this. If not, if you guys are like totally not wanting to do this, we won't. Of working in pairs. There should be paper and crayons on the table, and just work with a partner, or you can have just two people and one person and everyone else is observing. Whatever your energy level is, do the best you can. But do we have some people doing it? Come on, guys. I'm up on the stage. Just do it for me. So what's going to happen is we're going to have one person that's going to be drawing a picture, and the other person is just going to be doing a commentary of what they're doing. And this is a little bit of what I was talking about, of that emotional need of just watching over you, of just being present with somebody without judgment, without helping, without anything. So it's just about that. So raise your hand if you're drawing a picture. Thank you. Round of applause for the drawing of picture. How many people are doing the commentary? We got a couple. We need if you're drawing, we need someone to do the commentary, or else you're off the circle. So are you going to be doing the commentary with her? Yeah, because she's drawing. Who's doing the commentary with you? Someone. Will you help a person? Okay. So what you need to do when you're doing the drawing, wait, is the person who's doing the commentary is not giving commands, so you're not telling them what to do. You're not teaching them anything. You're not going to be like, wait, why don't let's do a straight line like this. Like, you're not teaching. You're not asking questions, because sometimes when we ask questions, it kind of disrupts someone's chain of thought. You're not interrupting, and that person is completely in charge. So you're just going like, oh, look at you're taking out an orange crayon, yellow crayon, and now she's looking them all up, and you're just giving facts. And we're going to do this for 30 seconds, okay? Even though I don't have a clock anywhere in this thing. So who's my timekeeper? 30 seconds. Anne-Marie. All right. So starting now, following the rules. Mm-hmm. 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 Anne-Marie, is it 30 seconds? Time? All right. So how did that feel? For the people who were drawing the picture, how did it feel? It might have felt weird. Huh? Good? Mm-hmm. How, anyone else? It felt strange having people stare at you. And what about the people who are doing the commentary? It, what'd you say? But and it's a really good practice to do, because it is so easy, first of all. So first of all, for anyone who ever does this with their kids, it doesn't feel weird. I have not met ever a kid, the biggest behaviors, the littlest behaviors, that does not like this. The only time they may struggle with liking it is, let's just say, you have to look at your tone of voice. So if I'm like, you look bored. Like, look at your drawing a circle, your circle. But that would be the only time I've noticed a kid being like having a reaction. But if you're like, oh wow, a circle. So going back to why it's such a big deal, we're so easy to jump and make assumptions to somebody having a conversation that then they never have the experience of, first of all, of being able to. So if we're wanting our kids to be able to express themselves, we often cut them off before they are able to express themselves. So let's just say there's, like, I wouldn't even make, so I don't even interpret. So I wouldn't be like, circle, here's a circle. I might be, okay, so here's a triangle and here's a square. I wouldn't say, oh, that's a house. I might do a square, a triangle and a square, because if I say it's a house, well, what if it's a spaceship? What if it's a church? What if it's, I don't know, a new robot? What if it's something else? And then by me making that interpretation, all of a sudden we're taking away creativity, we're taking away this child's voice, and then we're taking away that ability to kind of explore, because exploring also has to do with their ability to express themselves freely. And so that's something that oftentimes it's such a subtle thing of being able to follow these rules. So let's just say this is with a picture, but even if you're following these rules, even for 5 minutes, or really being intentional, you might have a whole different kind of conversation with your child than if you were being like, well, you shouldn't have done that, or, what's the rules with this? Like, there's times to do that, but there's times where we might be able to give our child space to be able to think about this for themselves. So if they're like, you know what, I got in a fight today, and then we're like, well, you're not supposed to be fighting, you got time out, whatever it is, versus, okay, so tell me a little bit more. Oh, he took my pen. Okay, so he took your pen. Then what happened? So you're just hearing what they're saying rather than cutting it off and just jumping into something else. Does that make sense? So practice this. I love this. You can come to our group and we can practice this some more, so a little plug on that. All right, so next slide. I'm not going to do this. Next one. Sorry, I kind of had this PowerPoint kind of put in there, but I want to make sure to put in all the stuff. So initiative. So once again, I've talked about initiative. This has to do with attachment, a parent being able to notice their child, but it also had to do with initiative. So there's all this crossover that's going on at the same time. So initiative is about teaching children to navigate the world they live in. So is it a dangerous world? Is it a scary, is it a nervous world? Is it a safe world where problems can be overcome? So depending on how we teach children initiative is how they will in turn see the world and how they will be open to new experiences. Slide. So we're going to watch this video of a child having a temper tantrum, and I want you to just kind of look at that ability of a child doing something, like being able to have his own independent thought, being able to complete an activity, and see if you see what happened.
What's the problem? You can't lift that up?
No!
Oh, come back and try again. You're almost to the sink.
I can't do it.
Oh,
I can't do it.
that looks like it's very heavy. I think you can do it though, Kirsten. I think you can lift it up to the sink and you can help clear the table.
I'm not big enough.
I think you can do it. Your big hammy couldn't do it, but you could do it. Oh. Oh. You want to try again? Maybe you take your thumb out of your mouth and move your lovey and you can do it all. Okay, let's go. Put it in the sink.
Can't do it.
Oh! You did it!
That is too heavy.
It was so heavy?
Yeah, she did it. But I have to be honest, I've showed this 50 million times and they're like, oh gosh, this kid is a nightmare. Or they're only focusing on this big temper tantrum. But what did she end up doing in spite of all that? She did it. And oftentimes when you have these big behaviors, what would we do sometimes with this situation? We pick it up and just do it, which sometimes, let's be realistic, sometimes you're just going to do that because of life if you're dealing with like 5 children. But sometimes we just do it and we're not being intentional of what we want to teach. So what were some things that he did to so instead of doing it, what was the dad doing? He was encouraging. What was he saying? Yeah, he said it was heavy. So there was no like judging of it, which oftentimes we'd be like, it's just a bowl, it's not heavy. But for her in this experience, in this time, it was really heavy. Or it could have been like, how often does this happen? This kid is getting in trouble. When the reality is, in the midst of this chaos, this child did not give up and put away that bowl. But we oftentimes can belittle them because we're not putting our head in, we're not putting us, I can't talk, and this is late in the day, we're not in their shoes. And so we're like, we're not taking them seriously, we're belittling their problems, when the reality is this is really serious for them in this moment. So by being able to do that and still pushing them, because it's really easy just to do it for them, that this child ended up putting this bowl away and still was able to have a right to be upset about it. Because, that's the most annoying thing when someone's like, you shouldn't be feeling bad about that. For me, that is like nails on the chalkboard, and how often do we often hear that? Like, why should you be feeling that way? You shouldn't be feeling that way. And we oftentimes do that with our kids, but this is just a way to also be able to push it. Any other thoughts on the video? It was cute. Okay. Quiet group. Okay, so now we're going to do the same, we're going to have an activity again of the colorers. You can have the same color and the same person who's doing the commentary. And now we're going to be switching it up. So you have to do it again. Sorry, colorer. But this time, you're going to be sometimes telling them what to do and what not to do. So you might be like, oh, use the red crayon. Or, oh, use the blue crayon. Oh, make an airplane. Or, and you might do some teaching. Okay? So we're going to do the same activity, same person drawing, same person doing the commentary, same person doing the timer. Anne-Marie, you got the same job of the timer. Is everyone ready for the picture? Okay. Starting, wait, we're not starting yet. Starting now. Color away. Time. All right, so for those that were drawing the picture, how did it feel this time versus the other time? Horrible. Anything else? Frustrating. What? You needed more time? So it didn't feel good. And so how did it feel for those that were like directing? They enjoyed it more. Interesting. The story thickens. Yeah. But I wondered actually if for the parent or the person who's doing the commentary, does it feel more comfortable? Because a lot of times people are like, ooh, the first time it was really uncomfortable. And this might be a little bit more comfortable because we're living in a society that it's like, do this, we're always teaching. And then no one has an opportunity to think for themselves, critical thinking, going forward. And a lot of these kids, they're needing help with executive functioning. And if they don't have an opportunity to think for themselves, at least 5 minutes, then they'll never be able to learn that skill. So just kind of reflect on yourself of like what felt more comfortable, and can you try to do something else? And sometimes what I realize is when I start doing commands and I notice myself doing that, and then I'm realizing I'm getting into a power control kind of thing, that's when I go back to, I'm just going to reflect back to what you're doing. And so then because that'll be the key when you know that that's not right, when you're getting a child who's just shutting down, you're having a power struggle, go back to reflecting and noticing what's going on. Any thoughts? And I have actually no idea the time, so you'll also be my timekeeper, Anne-Marie, so let me know how much time I have left. Okay, so this is another really wonderful way of creating initiative. And this is like if I used to do improv. I don't know if anyone's ever done the yes and game. Has anyone ever heard of it? So fun. And I'm going to try to be, someone's going to help. We're going to just create a story with us all. And after somebody says, and please help me out, because then it'll make it seem like it's anything. And it doesn't have to be right or wrong, so don't freak out. Because it could just be like, the boy went to the store. That's all you need. You don't need to get too complicated on things. So I'll say a little sentence, and then then the next person will go, yes, and then add on to my story. Okay? So I'm just going to make people do this, and literally, it does not matter if you're like, and she said, it doesn't matter how it goes. We just need to go with excitement, yes, and for the next one. So I'm going to go with a table I know who's going to talk, and then I'll go, and then we're going to get on to one other table. So I went to the moon. Yeah, you go, yes, and add on to the story. You saw an alien? You saw an alien. Okay. You say yes and then add on to the story. And he was green.
Yes, Sandy was flying a multicolored balloon.
Yes, in the blue. See how that makes it, see the difference when we were getting energized, and then when we just said no, the energy just went down. But when it was going up for a little while, like yes, 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 and then, so going back to how we can easily, and that was a great example of what can happen, because there was did you guys notice a little bit of excitement when we did the yes and? I mean, it was over here and there. I know it was. There's something about when you add on and just go, yes, and it can get addicting and you can add on and the story can go in a direction if we're all kind of coming together. And so it's about like, if you did that same game and I said the story and then, so I'll be like, yes, I went to the moon. And then Anne-Marie's like, no, you went to the store. And then it just doesn't have that same thing. So when we're just doing the yes and they're building like, what are we going to do today, at home? Should we build a fort? Yes. And what should we do? Yes. If you just change it up, trust me, that can do creativity and initiative into a whole other life. Any questions? Any thoughts? Okay. So self-regulation and self-control. So once again, it's how we're dealing with managing emotions. So it's the two things: helping children manage emotions, how we manage emotions, and helping how we express emotions and how our children express emotions. So there's like emotional literacy, the vocabulary they're using and how we're teaching it. And there's also the ability of how we are even processing our emotions. Am I one who's like, everything's fine, everything's good? Our kids are going to learn, everything's fine, everything good, I can't go, I want to be, I have to be like my mom. So you have to kind of look at both of those at the same time. So depending on how we do that is how we end up helping our children. So this is a big one of really helping create intentionality of teaching this, because one, I think there's a lot of families out there that, just even going back to us, that we were left to kind of manage our emotions by ourselves. So being able to be vulnerable and talk to someone about emotions, like that's a hard thing to do. And so sometimes we've learned different ways of coping, or sometimes we've never learned a huge emotional vocabulary, or we feel vulnerable, so we're only going to be doing the anger. So it's hard to teach our kids that when we're kind of at a deficit. So it's really important to kind of start learning that stuff. So let's go to the next one. Next slide. So next slide. So I'm going to just give a whole bunch of things of how to teach emotions, just like Emotion 101. So one, what do you guys, so some of our kids, especially with kids that are needing to be a lot more literal and really explaining, like having the feeling charts is really a big deal, because the child may not be in a place to ever express their feelings, but they might be in a place to be able to touch the feeling. So to make it even more interesting or more exciting, you could take, because they're really, a lot of kids that have been born with trauma, they're oftentimes misreading emotions. So someone who's like this, they're oftentimes, like the researchers show, that people think that their kids with trauma perceive it as anger, bored, and I'm just having a normal feeling, but they're seeing it in such a different way. So it's really important to kind of retrain these children about what are emotions. So having the feeling chart, having them having the family all have different feelings and taking pictures of everyone of confused and all those different things, that's also great. There's so many fun downloadable games that you could do in the house, like there's emotion bingo, and then you can kind of explain it. If you're watching TV, any opportunity to be like, gosh, what do you think he was feeling during that time? Like if you're watching a show together. And they'll be like, I don't know. And then I wouldn't be like, oh, he was feeling this. Because then you're acting like you know everything. But the reality is you don't. So you might be like, gosh, I wonder if he was feeling left out. or I wonder if he was feeling a little confused. And just wonder with the child. But it gives children, more ways of expressing feelings and talking about two feelings that they feel at the same time. It may not, you don't need, maybe through books or other things or movies, it might help them learn about emotions, but not so vulnerable, because they might not want to talk about their own stuff, or it can get really confusing when they're having big feelings in their own family. So this is just a way to start bringing that in, of really just setting the stage of we talk about feelings. And it's going to be really important also that you're talking about your own feelings. Obviously, you're not going to be like crying to your child and then they become the parent. But you might be like, I came home and I was feeling, it's like, even with you, if you're having trouble with your child, it's like, I love you, and sometimes I get, overwhelmed and confused because I want to help you and I don't know how. You can express it where it's appropriate, where they're not taking on your emotions. Or you might be like, also helping them express their emotions through their body, just going, you know what, gosh, I have so much stuff that I have to do today. I have to go to the store, I have to go to the school, I have to do this. And you know what I'm feeling? Like my heart is going super fast. Gosh, I'm feeling like I'm hot. Like all these things are going on. So it's just a very non-intrusive way just to have feelings as part of this. And always like trying to label the children's feelings, but not, once again, like, I know what you're feeling. You might be like, oh gosh, I wonder if, like, gosh, I like, let's just say someone was bullying them. Gosh, that must be like so hard for you, because I knew you really liked this kid and now he's bullying you. I'm wondering if you're feeling like, left out, insecure. I don't know, is that what you're feeling? So you're not telling them what to feel, you're kind of putting some words out there and then you're checking in with them. Versus, it's because you were bullying today, or I know what you're feeling. Sometimes we don't even talk about it, and then they're left kind of like they don't even know what to do. So those little details of the day make a huge difference. Even like going back to dealing with a child that has special needs. Sometimes we're constantly in reactive mode, that we forget to really actually talk to our other child, being like, gosh, how did you feel that Johnny had like that big temper tantrum? I was wondering, did you feel scared? Did you not, I'm just checking in with you. Because they may not feel safe, because of all these big behaviors, they may not be safe to kind of process that, and then they're left kind of alone. Does that make sense? And really like accepting our children's feelings, I go back to, we often do this, probably with partners, probably with friends, like, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Like, you're feeling guilty? No, you shouldn't feel that way. Like, or you shouldn't do that. It is so annoying because it's like you just cut off that emotional conversation, because now I'm like, great, she told me I shouldn't be feeling this, and now I'm feeling this, and what am I supposed to do with that? And we do that with our kids, we do this with everyone, so just something, once again, our rule is to be reflective, noticing yourself with that. Or, trying to fix the problem when sometimes we just need to be heard. So it's going to be important. Like, you could even check in with your kid, like, do you want advice right now? Or do you want me just to listen? So that way, it's not set up to get into that power struggle. Like, and I'm sorry, men in the room, so please forgive me, but it's like, I know that, women were like, we just want to listen, you to hear us. And then men are like, we just want to fix it. And so the more that we're able to start expressing exactly what we're needing, because we end up doing the exact same thing to our kids, where we are trying to fix it when they just need to be listening. So it's like, here we're complaining. So there's a lot of things that you can do with, and how much time do I have? Oh, I still have, do I have plenty? So you'll give me like a 5-minute, because I can keep on talking or not talking enough. So going back to reflecting every opportunity, so like even something of like, I know you get nervous going, to church, what do you think we can do to help you, to make church a little bit easier? So if you're noticing a theme, Sometimes we just keep on doing the exact same thing, one after the other, and we're causing the same kind of havoc all the time. But if you take the time to talk to a child and talk to them about the feelings, but then maybe problem solve of what you can do when you're feeling that way, it may come out, the results may come out completely different because we're putting that child in to help manage their emotions. So the child might say, oh, I want to go home when I'm feeling anxious. And so then if the child's able to say this, go, oh, okay, so if you want to go home, maybe we can have a sign, because sometimes maybe the child might do something else. And so it's like giving that sign might help empower that child to be able to manage their emotions and give them an equal partnership. Because once again, we're not going to be able to have that child have initiative if we don't give them an opportunity to help with problem solving also with their emotions. Any questions up to this point? Because I'm sure talking a lot. Please give, like, the more that we talk, the better we can. Also, highlighting healthy ways of expressing emotions. And so I'm all about label. So there's a difference between unlabeled praise and labeled praise. And so unlabeled praise is like, oh, good job, versus, or, oh, look at that, you're good job, whatever, really indistinct. Labeled praise is being really specific of what you're doing. And I might be like, so, you know, there was a kid who was having a temper tantrum, and I was just kind of waiting, and then all of a sudden I saw this kid go, and I'm like, wait a second, did I just see a deep breath? Did I just see that? And the kid's like, yeah, and then he was all excited, and then he got it. And so then every single time I saw him, I'm like, you remember that time when you were upset and then you started doing your breathing? God, I love that. And it's like, so I talked about it all the time and reinforced it all the time, but I was really specific of the time, so because we can really focus on that anger thing rather than looking at, in the midst of the chaos, this child was taking some deep breaths. Or like, and you can do that all the time of just kind of thinking about it. So like, let's just say you see a child, one of your children doing that, you might just, without them even hearing it, you might be calling mom or dad and be like, gosh, let me tell you what happened with Johnny. He was upset. Can I tell you what he did? He was taking some deep breaths. I mean, it was amazing. And then it's like he just stopped. And so he's not even he's maybe playing and doing his own thing, but he's hearing that. Or if you're like talking to a friend, you know, you can just have that as part of daily conversation of being really specific of noticing when that child is doing a healthy way of expressing themselves, saying like, oh my gosh, can I just tell you what happened today? He had a bad day at school, and guess what he did? He was in the car. He told me everything. Oh, I love this because you know what? One of the things in our family is I don't want anyone being sad by themselves, and I love the fact that you came to talk to me. Thank you. So you're really, really, really specific of when you're catching. And it might be important even with, if you're by yourself or with your co-parent, of really thinking about what is a healthy way to express your feelings so that it'll be easier to catch that if you really are thinking about it ahead of time. Does that make sense? Okay, next one. Another feeling chart. Next. Oh, go back. So how are you guys feeling right now? Raise your hand if you're feeling bored. Raise your hand if you're feeling tired. Tired and interested? Maybe a little bit of both. So, you know, it's like you can give opportunities, and it's really good to kind of read the room. So now I know you guys aren't bored, but you're tired. Or you maybe are kind of shy to be bored. All right, let's go to the next one. So I love like mindfulness and breathing and yoga and all this stuff because it really is, what I love with it with kids is it's really concrete strategies to teach children how to start learning how to self-regulate. Because going back to our kids, they don't automatically have this. So I'm going to show you some of these. These are definitely for younger kids. But what I love about this is you can use your creativity for whatever they're interested in. So I'm just going to show you a couple of them. And this maybe will get you guys to go to sleep, I don't know, but we'll like try a couple of them. So here's some calming breaths that you can do. So instead of being like, you need to take a deep breath, or you need to calm down, this is a classic one, so I'm just going to show it. And once again, this is for younger kids. But I've done it. I was in elementary school. The whole school did it up to like 5th grade. So you might be surprised what the older kids still might do it too. So here's the flowers. Here's the candles. And I see no one's wanting to do it. You smell the flowers. Blow out the candles. Smell the flowers. Blow out the candles. You can get a candle, a real candle, and blow out the flower. You know, you can get a real flower and blow out the candles, having them practice it. You could be like, you know what, before we go to bed, let's do 10 smell the flowers and blow out the candles, or whatever. You pick your breath. So it could be just something fun. I would not start using this when they're having big behaviors. However, how I might use it, depending on how the child is, I might smell the flowers and blow out the candles. I'll be like, oh, this is stressful. Now, if the kid is like, getting more annoyed, I might stop with that, and I just might be doing my breathing anyways. But it's a way of kind of still putting it in. The goal is, the more that this child is practicing this, when they're calm and being able to see calm moments, because remember, these kids that are traumatized have never felt calmness in their body. They've never felt relaxing in their body. This is a way to help calm them down. So you want them first to have more opportunities when they're calm to be able to be calmer. It's like you don't want a child to learn, if we're learning to walk, I'm not going to learn to walk when I'm climbing Mount Everest. You want to start something simple and then building into something else. And then sometimes what I'll do is like, if there's like big behaviors, and the moment of when you have a temper tantrum where it's up like this, and then it finally goes down like this, I might be like, should we videotape this for your mom? And they'll be like, yes! And then I might do this. So it's just reinforcing this is what we like, and you keep on doing that. Another one, balloon breath. This is definitely for littler ones, and I'm going to do this on the stage. So you might do, then you can have somebody pop the balloon, boop, and then they go, and then they go on the floor, but I'm not going to. Too shy. Wing breath, or if a kid likes birds, or if they like, I don't know, this could be a robot too, like, you could do that. Reach for the sun, it's more of like giving energy, so it'd be like, energizing one. No. This is good for anger. I love doing this. This one's a funny one. This is called, I like to call it milkshake breath, but you can call it lemonade breath. You can call it, this is an opportunity to drink soft drinks if they want, whatever it is. I'd be passing out milkshakes to everyone, and so everyone can pass it around. I'm literally doing pretend milkshakes. I get the straw out, and if you can, you curl your tongue like this. Not everyone can, but if you can't, it's okay. You still have your straw, and so what you do is you inhale with your tongue like this, and then exhale through your nose. And I might be like, so good. What's in yours? And so it's practicing, and this also is a way to help. And so going back to the more tricks you have up your sleeve, they might be like, I don't want to smell the flowers and blow out the candles. But then be like, gosh, you know what I'm in the mood for right now? I'm in the mood for a chocolate milkshake, are you? And then we get it out. So that you can use your creativity with that. Bee breath is like, okay, so I did it. It's great with kids. It's great with kids because they'll do it for like 30 seconds at a time. Or you could do snake breath. then they'll go, I'm sorry, if you have 30 seconds or a minute of them doing that, that's a little silence. It's good, and it's helping them as well, and it's that long exhale makes a difference. Firework breath, there's so many. I love this, because this will get you into creativity. Oh gosh, I don't know if I could do this right now. So you go back down, and I can't right now, I've got bad knees. So you go, that could be also rocket breath if you want, depending on your child's interest. But you can go super fast, you can go super slow. They can do it, they love it. The choo-choo breath, so a kid who likes trains. Darth Vader breath. There's so many cute ones out there. So like you could just use you could do, if they like airplanes, you could just be like, or superheroes. Or you could just make it funny, like dun dun dun. You could do it however you want to do it, but it's movement of helping them kind of regulate, and you're making it fun. It doesn't have to be, because sometimes we'll be like, taking a deep breath becomes a punishment, and no one likes to do it. And the reality is, it's not about that. It's really just about, being calm is kind of cool. It could be really fun. Next one. How much time do I have? 6 minutes. So I'll briefly go over conflict resolution, because it's a part of life, and I go back to, there's this fine line of teaching kids to help solve problems and giving them a way to problem solve without us doing it, and us being present is a big deal. So, it's the next one. So the big thing with this is, and what oftentimes is the problem with conflict resolution, is we never actually identify the problem. We're all so if two kids are fighting over a toy, we're like, okay, enough of the fighting, you go over here, you go over there. Versus, okay, the problem we have here is you guys both want this toy. How can we solve the problem? So all of a sudden, you're in a whole different component of looking at solving the problem. And then what you can do is, so if two kids are fighting, so a couple things, just little side notes with this. If two kids are fighting for a toy and you come in, and trust me, you're probably looking at me like, yeah, right, I'm never going to do this. Trust me, this works. And if it doesn't work the first time, use your initiative, try again. Because oftentimes there's things that can happen. So you come in a calm way and take the toy that they want just to neutralize it. So I might be taking the toy and just holding on to it in my back just so we can have an opportunity to really talk. And then I might be like, so Johnny, what happened? Sandy took my toy. Oh, so, gosh, yeah, you look really upset. So what you're saying is Sandy took your toy, right? Is that what you got? So I'm just going back to reflecting what we just said. We just want to be there and reflect. I'm not going to be like, no, you had it first, which we often do. And then I might, because I'm helping them resolve conflict, not to say you're right, you're wrong. Because how many times is somebody wrong wins? That happens all the time. But we want to help them talk. And then I'll be like, okay, Sally, what happened? And then I repeat what she said. And then I'll go, okay, so the problem is this. And so the problem is they both want the toy. And so listening to how I'm questioning it helps with creating initiative. So I might be like, so how do you think we could solve the problem? If the kids have never had experience with this, they might be like, I don't know, I want it. Or they don't know, they have no idea. Instead of me being like, okay, let's take turns. I'll set the timer, you go 5 minutes, you go 5 minutes. And so that's different than what I'm gonna say now, where it's like, do you guys want some ideas from me? And then, she says yes, then they'll be like, yes. So I'm giving, once again, that initiative. It's just a little subtle detail. I'm asking them if it's okay for me to give ideas. And then I'll be like, do you guys want to do the timer? So 2 minutes, 2 minutes? And then maybe one kid says no and another one says yes, or maybe they say yes. And then I'll be like, all right, we just solved a problem. High five. And my wording is, what's the problem? We solved the problem. And so those are the words. It may last a little longer. I'm really simplifying it because we have 6 minutes left. But but it is something where, like, you, by just asking the question and giving that opportunity to go back and forth, and kind of like the yes and, because the kids may have some other ideas that we never thought of, so we don't have to use all of our creativity to solve that problem. So just the key things, takeaways: identify the problem, and and notice when they're solving the problem. That's a really big thing. And also making sure that we give them the control. So us asking for permission to give an idea. Does that make sense? And does it feel a little different? And because it goes back to initiative, it's giving them some control. Because these kids, a lot of these kids come in with a lot of big behaviors. They're not having a lot of control. That circle is not very big because of whatever is going on. So these little details are helping them have a voice and helping them problem solve. Because the more that you do that, like, I've seen this a lot there's the videos, if you ever want to look at videos, it's called highscope.com if you did conflict resolution. It's like a preschool that that these kids have been doing conflict resolution for a long time, because these kids are like gifted now. Like, they're like, well, let's do this and this and this. But it is about, with these kiddos, like, it is about this intentional teaching that with it, they might be getting really better with this. And that's ultimately what life is about solving problems and trying to figure out how to go forward. And it is a huge, if they know how to solve problems, they are going to become more resilient to be able to bounce back. And also with that timer thing, you're in charge of the timer. So you're not going to leave like a timer and just let them solve it. You're going to come back and make sure that it's being followed. All right, anything else? Okay, this is super brief, and then we'll just call it a day. That with all of this teaching, so if you're doing breathing, or if you're teaching, like, just think about, and maybe this can be a homework assignment, because I know you guys have all this free time, of thinking about when in your routine that you can actually incorporate it in. Because clearly, we're not going to have a class on social emotional skills and talking about resiliency, but thinking about things that you can do as part of a routine. So, like, even going back to, like, and I'm trying to think of, my mind's going break, but like breathing. So maybe before nighttime, we're doing 10 breaths and they get to pick the breath that they want to do. Or maybe, like, if, a sibling's sick, and you might be like, should we have let's have a moment of silence, like literally like 20 seconds or 5 seconds to think about, Johnny that's sick today. Whatever it is of the values you want to do, that will really enforce those protective factors. I think, because I'm not even going to get into it, any questions? And, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mhm. Well, and I think, I mean, we could definitely have more of a conversation because I think this happens often. And especially with telling them what to do, you're giving a commentary, he's in charge. And so you're going to be really, because I think what two things can happen. One is when a child's always wanting to be in control, it's like, it's hard just, either you're giving him control because it's just exhausting and fine, let's give him control. Yes, or I want to be intentional for setting, I'm big on setting timers because then you're going to be letting him be in control in a more positive way and where you're in a connecting way. So if he says he's coloring or whatever he's doing and he says quiet, he says be quiet. You're quiet and just observing him. But your focus for 5 minutes is looking. You might be like, oh, there's the red color. And then nothing. And he's like, quiet. Or if he's like, and this happens often, so it's like, kids will be like, stop it, I want you over there. And then I'll be like, okay, so do you want me, is it okay if I'm here? No. Is it okay if I'm here? No. Is it okay if I'm here? No. Is it okay if I'm here? So I'm still doing those same concepts. The hard thing is like trying to figure out, first of all, where he really wants you in that moment because you're giving him control in that moment because this is really about attachment and so that would be just one thing of set the timer and you're really looking at that because the reality is you're like, I'm still with you and it seemed like he didn't want you there, but the reality is he did. But he wanted you right over here. And you just might, it's going to be a game of how much you say or not. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's like, and so I can't give just a blanket statement to it because I think, I promise you in the midst of this, there's probably this it's like Circle of Security is an 8-week course, but the reality of dealing with special needs, there's so much intricacies of how to play it out that it's like going back to me doing that makes a difference. That gives that child the ability to explore, but it's looking so different than normally developing children. Mm-hmm. 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 Well, and my advice to you, because I can't give you a simple answer because it's so much more complex than, for me to give you a 2-minute advice simplifies a completely complex problem, that don't suffer alone. And so you're right now, like going back to the problem right now, the problem is you don't know what to do. How do we solve that problem? And it's like making sure you're not suffering by yourself, giving the space to think about it, because these are all complex problems. I'm sure you're not the only person in this room that has this, but problems are a lot more complex when you have no time to think about it and when you're processing it by yourself. And so it can be like it's a process because you have autism, but you have trauma, I don't know if he's been exposed to anything as well. I mean, the whole list can go on and on. It's super complex. And to think that you can anyone, not you, anyone could just figure this out in their head and not have a space to think about it, it's just not possible because there's just so much going on at the same time. So I don't know if I answered, but any other questions? I think it's time now because Jody's like, all right, well, thank you for everything, and I think I'll be back.